In the sprawling Roman Republic, while Gaius Julius Caesar forged his legend in Gaul and Gnaeus Pompeius Magnus secured the eastern provinces, another figure amassed unparalleled power through sheer wealth. This was Marcus Licinius Crassus, whose life epitomized ambition and whose death would become a legend of ironic retribution. His story takes us back to an ancient Rome where riches dictated influence and an insatiable desire for more led one man to a truly spectacular end. Born into a respectable Roman family around 115 before Common Era, BCE, Crassus displayed a prodigious talent for finance and an unyielding hunger for accumulation from a young age. While his aristocratic peers pursued military renown, Crassus engaged in a different kind of conquest, the relentless acquisition of assets, gold, and political leverage. His pivotal moment arrived during the turbulent period of Lucius Cornelius Sulla's proscriptions in the 80s BCE. As Sulla purged his political adversaries, confiscating their estates, Crassus saw not tragedy, but an unprecedented financial opening. He systematically acquired the properties of condemned men at laughably low prices, leveraging the desperation of families facing ruin. Estates worth immense sums were snapped up for mere fractions of their true value, rapidly establishing Crassus as a significant landowner. Crassus's crowning and most notorious entrepreneurial feat was the establishment of Rome's first private fire brigade. In a city largely constructed from wood, where devastating fires were a constant threat, Crassus assembled a force of 500 enslaved individuals, meticulously trained in firefighting. Their arrival at a burning property, however, came with a chilling proposition. Instead of immediately dousing the flames, Crassus would offer to buy the distressed property, and often adjacent ones, at an absurdly low take-it-or-leave-it price. If the desperate owner accepted, his well-drilled unit would then spring into action to save the structure. If they refused, they would merely stand by, observing impassively as the flames consumed everything. Through these ruthless tactics, Crassus swiftly became the owner of a substantial portion of Rome. His colossal fortune was estimated at 200 million sesterces, a sum equivalent to many billions of modern US dollars, arguably making him the wealthiest individual in all of Roman history. His personal creed underscored his ambition. "No Roman should be considered wealthy," he famously declared, "if he cannot maintain an army with his own resources." Despite his unparalleled affluence, Crassus harbored a gnawing dissatisfaction, a profound envy of the military prestige enjoyed by his peers. While he amassed properties and gold, Gnaeus Pompeius Magnus had already celebrated multiple triumphs for his conquests in the east and his campaign against piracy, becoming Pompey the Great. Gaius Julius Caesar, meanwhile, was rapidly carving out a legendary reputation through his brilliant and brutal campaigns in Gaul, cultivating a fiercely loyal army. Crassus, despite his crucial role in crushing Spartacus's formidable slave rebellion, never achieved the same level of public adulation or martial glory as his political rivals. This lack of military renown, a secret ache, corroded his spirit. He possessed every material comfort, but in Roman society, true power and lasting fame were forged not in gold, but in victorious campaigns. And so, at the advanced age of 60, when most Romans of his stature retired to lives of leisure, Crassus embarked on a military expedition that would irrevocably seal his fate. The target of his belated ambition was the Parthian Empire, a formidable eastern power controlling lands that correspond to modern-day Iran and Iraq. The Parthians were famed not only for their vast wealth, their cities were rumored to shimmer with gold, but more critically, for their elite mounted warriors, the heavily armored cataphracts and their highly skilled horse archers, capable of firing volleys of arrows with deadly precision even while seemingly retreating, the legendary Parthian shot, a term still used today. For Crassus, Parthia presented an irresistible dual opportunity to finally achieve military glory that would match, or even surpass, Caesar's and Pompey's. and to further swell his already immense fortune by plundering the East's fabled riches. Tales of abundant Parthian gold ignited Crassus's imagination, fueling an obsession that would ultimately lead to his demise. In 53 before Common Era, disregarding ill omens and even Rome's official policy of peace with Parthia, Crassus began his eastward march. He led 7 legions, approximately 40,000 men, supplemented by several thousand cavalry and light infantry, a formidable Roman army. From its very inception, the expedition seemed cursed. During the traditional departure ceremony in Rome, the priest conducting the rites made a terrible error, inadvertently invoking curses upon Crassus instead of blessings for victory. Later, as his troops crossed the Euphrates River, a violent storm unexpectedly destroyed the bridge, sweeping away soldiers, another ominous sign that Crassus, blinded by his grand ambition, chose to ignore. As the Roman legions advanced deeper into Parthian territory, Crassus's overconfidence and tactical ineptitude became alarmingly evident. He foolishly rejected strategic alliances with local rulers, such as King Artavasdes II of Armenia, who offered crucial cavalry support and a safer, mountainous route, fearing that sharing military credit would diminish his own anticipated triumph. He also disregarded sound military advice from his seasoned officers, including his quaestor, Gaius Cassius Longinus, who urged caution and a more defensive approach. Even his son, Publius Crassus, a talented and brave commander who had served with distinction under Caesar in Gaul, tried in vain to temper his father's recklessness, but Crassus remained deaf to all warnings. Meanwhile, the Parthians, led by the brilliant young general Shurina, meticulously observed the Roman advance and formulated their devastating plan. Shurina, reportedly barely 30 years old, was a strategic genius with impressive personal resources. He was said to travel with 1,000 camels for his baggage, 200 carriages for his concubines, and a personal guard of 1,000 heavily armored soldiers, in addition to his main force of an estimated 10,000 highly mobile mounted archers. The destinies of these two contrasting leaders, the aging, avaricious Roman and the cunning young Parthian, would converge on the desolate plains near Carrhae, in what is now southeastern Turkey. Your job complex? Imagine profiting from actual fires with a fire department. Subscribe for more Roman innovation. As the Roman legions trudged under the scorching Mesopotamian sun, Crassus's scouts reported the proximity of Parthian forces. Against all sensible advice to establish a defensive line near a water source or within more defensible terrain, Crassus, impatient for glory and gold, ordered an immediate advance into the open, featureless plain. His eager haste to secure a swift victory would prove to be his ultimate undoing. What unfolded on May 6th, 53 before Common Era, was one of the greatest Roman military catastrophes, rivaling even Cannae. The Parthians employed an innovative and devastating tactic. Their mounted archers would encircle the Roman formation, unleash a relentless hail of arrows from a safe distance, and then swiftly retreat before the slower, heavily armored Roman infantry could effectively counterattack. The Roman legions, renowned for their disciplined, compact formations, became easy targets in the flat, exposed terrain, unable to engage their elusive enemy. The specialized Parthian arrows, designed to pierce Roman armor, caused horrific casualties, pinning soldiers together and wreaking havoc on their tight ranks. Desperate to break the suffocating siege and the psychological torment of the unending arrow storm, Crassus's son Publius courageously led a cavalry charge against the archers. It was a fatal miscalculation. Lured away from the main body of the army, Publius and his Gallic cavalry were swiftly encircled by overwhelming numbers of Parthian horsemen. After a fierce, desperate struggle, Publius, gravely wounded and seeing the battle was irrevocably lost, nobly asked his shield-bearer to kill him, thereby avoiding the ultimate humiliation of capture. The Parthians then severed his head and mounted it on a spear. When messengers reached Crassus, bearing the gruesome sight of his son's decapitated head. The psychological blow was devastating. The man who had accumulated so much wealth now faced an unbearable loss that no amount of gold could possibly compensate. With his army in disarray, morale shattered, and completely surrounded, Crassus had no choice but to attempt negotiations with Serena. At this critical juncture, historical narratives diverge, and the line between verifiable fact and enduring legend becomes tantalizingly thin, giving rise to one of antiquity's most infamous and gruesome tales. According to later Roman historians, notably Dio Cassius, writing in the early 3rd century Common Era, and Plutarch, whose life of Crassus was penned nearly 200 years after the events, Crassus proceeded to the negotiation meeting with the Parthian general. During the tense encounter, a struggle or misunderstanding erupted among the retinue. In the ensuing chaos, Crassus was killed. What allegedly happened next became the chilling legend that has echoed through the centuries. The Parthians, reportedly well aware of Crassus's notorious obsession with wealth, decided to deliver a final, supremely ironic lesson. These accounts claim they poured molten gold down his throat, uttering the chilling proclamation, "You have thirsted for gold, now drink gold." The imagery is powerfully symbolic. The man whose entire life had been dedicated to the accumulation of wealth was, in death, consumed by the very metal he so coveted. The bitter irony of such a punishment, if it truly occurred, would certainly not have been lost on the Romans, who frequently interpreted great tragedies as moral lessons about hubris and the perils of uncontrolled ambition. However, modern historians largely express skepticism regarding the literal truth of the molten gold story. There are several reasons for this doubt. Firstly, the most detailed accounts originate from authors writing centuries after the event, neither of whom had access to direct eyewitness testimonies. Secondly, similar narratives of greedy rulers meeting a fiery or molten end appear in other historical and mythological contexts across diverse cultures. For instance, the Persian king Cyrus was said to have executed Croesus of Lydia, another famously wealthy ruler, by placing him on a pyre, though Croesus was supposedly later saved. Such recurring themes suggest a possible folkloric or moralizing trope, rather than a unique, verifiable historical event specific to Crassus. Many contemporary scholars posit that Crassus was more likely simply killed during the tumultuous negotiations, perhaps beheaded, a common Parthian practice for dealing with important defeated enemies. His head, a gruesome trophy, would then have been dispatched to the Parthian king, Orodes II, who, according to some sources, was reportedly watching a play by Euripides when the macabre offering arrived, perhaps even using it as a prop in the tragedy. If the molten gold story is indeed apocryphal, its powerful and enduring persistence in popular memory is testament to its perfect narrative conclusion for Crassus's life. The Romans held a deep appreciation for such poetic symmetries, particularly when they reinforced societal moral values. Crassus's death, regardless of its exact details, served as a potent parable about the dangers of excessive greed and the ultimate futility of material wealth when confronted by fate, divine retribution, or ironic justice. The consequences of Crassus's disastrous campaign were profound and far-reaching for the Roman Republic. The Battle of Carrhae stands as one of the most humiliating military defeats in Roman history, comparable only to the catastrophic Battle of Carrhae against Hannibal. Rome lost approximately 20,000 men killed and another 10,000 captured, who were reportedly settled by the Parthians on the eastern frontier of their empire, forming a lost legion. Most significantly, the legionary eagles, the sacred and revered standards of the Roman legions, were captured, a supreme and deeply felt humiliation that would haunt Rome for decades until Emperor Augustus skillfully negotiated their return through diplomacy in 20 before Common Era. Politically, Crassus's death directly dismantled the First Triumvirate, informal but powerful political alliance between Crassus, Pompey, and Caesar. Crassus had often served as the financial backer, mediator, and crucial balancing force between the formidable ambitions of Pompey and Caesar. Without Crassus's mediating influence, the two remaining giants inevitably clashed in a devastating civil war that would forever alter the face of the Roman Republic, ultimately leading to its demise and the rise of the Roman Empire under Caesar's heir. As for the Parthians, their stunning victory at Carrhae solidified their reputation as an invincible military power, a reputation that would endure for centuries. No Roman general would achieve a decisive victory against them until the campaigns of Emperor Trajan, almost 170 years later, demonstrating the long-term impact of Muraena's tactical brilliance. Crassus's story offers us powerful reflections on the nature of ambition, the dangers of hubris, and the inherent limits of money's power. He accumulated every conceivable material possession, yet he died seeking something gold could not provide: immortal military glory. Ironically, he achieved a form of enduring immortality not as the triumphant conqueror he craved to be, but as an eternal symbol of the perils of limitless, unrestrained greed. If the legend of his death by molten gold is literally true, it represents a form of poetic justice, so perfectly fitting that it almost seems divinely ordained. If it is apocryphal, the very fact that so many generations have believed it to be true reveals something profound about humanity's enduring need to perceive moral order in the chaos of history, to believe that, in the end, individuals are punished precisely for their deepest vices, that fate often delivers a just, if brutal, retribution. Reflecting on the life and death of Marcus Licinius Crassus, we are starkly reminded that all the riches in the world are ultimately powerless against the dictates of fate, the consequences of strategic blunders, and the corrosive effects of unchecked ambition. The man who owned nearly all of Rome could not buy his survival on the arid plains of Mesopotamia. And so, the richest of Romans entered history not primarily for his financial genius, but for the dramatic and gruesome manner in which he met his end, leaving behind the bitter, metaphorical taste of molten gold. Whether historical fact or moralizing legend, the image remains a powerful cautionary tale against unbridled ambition and the insatiable quest for more, always more. In ancient Rome, it was often said that every man had his price. Crassus, who knew the price of everything, tragically discovered too late the priceless value of wisdom, moderation, and ultimately, a dignified demise. Subscribe for more gripping tales from the annals of history.